Hello, this is Tim Law with Playing It Forward Coaching and Self-Reliant You. Always remember your life, your dreams, your goals, and your career are all essential. A big thank you to over 400 people who have subscribed to this channel, Playing It Forward Coaching. If you haven't already, please do so. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, you can achieve. I am over the top, incredibly happy with the interview I'm going to have here with probably my key role model outside of my mom and dad as far as wrestling was concerned and teaching, Coach extraordinaire, Coach James Howard from Oswego State. So, Coach, tell us a little about your story, and we'll do a little Q&A here. Great to see you.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to be here. Life is good in the fast lane.
You've always been in the fast lane, Coach, that's for sure.
I live in the fast lane. You have to. When you get older, you got to be moving, going somewhere.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. So tell us a little bit about your, how you got started in wrestling, and your involvement as far as coaching. Going from Windsor High School in New York to Oswego. You went to Ithaca College. You were 4th, 3rd, and 2nd in the NCAAs. I mean, a phenomenal career. And anyway, so far away.
Okay, well, it started like this. I was always had great athletic things that I would like to do, but I was too small. I was a skinny mini when I was small, but I was a trapper and a hunter and a golf caddy, and I did all these tough things. So at Vestal High School, if you lettered, you got to have your locker in the varsity locker room. And I lettered early as a freshman. And of course, there I was with all these big football players. And their delight and glee in the beginning was putting me in a locker and shutting the door. And I couldn't get out. It was only a one-way deal. Well, I learned early not to get caught in a position like that. And so I survived all that. And then one year, I think it was my freshman year, instead of going out for cross country, which I ran in junior high school, I went out for football. And a cross country coach, whose name was Sid Stock, was an old Oswego grad. And he come and grabbed me. And he said, "Get out of those shoulder pads. You don't belong there. You belong on the cross country team. Get them off." And he took them off me. And that was the end of my football career. I didn't last very long. I became a cross country runner, which was good because we ended up having a very, very good cross country team. In fact, I participated in the very first New York State Public High School Athletic Association state cross country meet. And we were 3rd in that meet. And we were just a little old Vestal High School. Nobody ever heard of us. But we had 5 very good runners, people who liked to run. We had an Indian on our team. We had a black on our team. And we had 3 white guys. And away we went. And all of a sudden, we're in the cross country meets. And in those days, Binghamton North, Binghamton Central were all big powers. And we beat them all. And we beat them all. And all of a sudden, our fame rose. And there we were in the state meet. And I think I finished 7th. But we had like 4 of our 5 guys were in the top 15.
Wow.
And so we were forever thought of as a big cross-country school. And then, of course, the wrestling season came on. And being a little guy, I started out at 103 pounds. And but for some reason, I was still growing. And all of a sudden, I was at 112. And I think I stayed there for my freshman and junior years. And I was slowly moving up toward the 120s. And there was a guy at Ithaca High School. His name was Roger Van Etten. And he and I had some terrific bouts as high school guys, and all at 115 pounds. So I stayed there. So I stayed at 115. And then I went on to Ithaca College. First of all, my mother was always trying to run my business. And she always wanted me to do this or that. And she wanted me to be all these things like a priest. Could I ever be a priest, Tim? I doubt it. I doubt it. I don't think I'd qualify. But anyway, I had all these things that I wanted to do. And One of the things I really wanted to do was to wrestle in college. And I applied to Cortland State, and Cortland had the audacity to turn me down.
Big mistake.
It wouldn't take me. My mother said, "Oh, that's the end there. Oh, that's the end there." Well, in those days, you could PG, postgraduate course. And I went back, post-graduated, and we had again the great cross-country team. We ended up third in the States that year. And of course, I was still wrestling. But in the middle of the year, my mother said, they're having this thing at Ithaca College where if you start in January, you're going to go through the summer taking regular classes, and you're going to catch up with the class that you didn't start in the fall. And the guy is coming down to see you tonight. So you can't go run the trap line. You got to be here. So there I was. I was called. Whitey Cole came into our house and said, "Yeah, we need you. We need you at 118 pounds." And so off I went in January and went to Ithaca College. Ended up wrestling 1 year at 126, and then they changed the weight classes around, and the weight class was 130. And 130 fit me just perfect because I didn't have to cut a lot of weight. I could work out strong every night and still eat a full meal and come back the next day and make weight. So I ended up starting at 126. Wrestling at 130, though, was really probably the best weight for me when I was in college. So I had pretty good luck at Ithaca College. I don't think anybody ever beat me in a dual meet. I think I was something like 49 and zip.
Wow, great record.
And yeah, I had a pretty good. Well, we wrestled Cortland, we wrestled Alfred, we wrestled Albany, we wrestled. I'm trying to think. Oh, we went down and wrestled Lock Haven. In fact, my son found an old clipping where we tied Lock Haven, and Lock Haven the year before had been 10th in the country because there was only one division in those days.
Sure.
So, so that's kind of the way my deal went. I was fortunate enough to have Ithaca College send me to the nationals each year, and I went right up, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. And if there's another year, I probably might have been the NCAA champ. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's
run.
how I came. Now, in the meantime, the Rose Bowl of wrestling appeared, and that was the greatest thing that ever happened to Eastern wrestling because a guy by the name of John Reese.
Yeah, I know Coach Reese very well. Good guy.
Started Wilkes Open. Yeah, well, they started the thing called the Wilkes Open, and they had this huge tournament 2 days before Christmas, and I wrestled in it. Met a lot of nice young people in that tournament. In fact, I think I won it at least twice, maybe 3 times, and that was my claim to fame because ever after that, you know, they say my name and say, "Oh yeah, we know him. He's the Wilkes Open champ." So that established who I was, I think, in my first time. Then instead of going to the NCAAs in those days, we had to qualify by going to the Midwest in Cleveland and wrestling at a tournament out there called the 4I. Don't ask me what the 4 Eyes are because I'm not sure. But if you placed in the 4 Eyes in the top 3, I think I would send you to the NCAAs. And I did just that. So I was very fortunate. So that's how I got going.
Yeah, well, great.
Then after, I was the first guy in my college graduating class drafted in the Korean War. Now, I don't hear out of one ear. I'm on a bad knee, bone on bone. And they took me. And where do you think they put me? Demolition.
Oh,
Thing. Make nice and loud. Run the wire. Pull the thing. Push the pump. Blow up things. Blew up stuff all over Europe. Our specialty was bridges. We blew up a lot of bridges, a lot of old bridges that were torn up from World War II.
Sure.
So, and then I wrestled in the service, of course, and actually I came home early to qualify for the Olympics, and I ended up being second to Myron Roderick. Roderick represented us in Helsinki.
Yeah, from Oklahoma.
In those days, they didn't take the alternates, so I never got a chance to go. So that's my story.
Well, just the idea that you know getting to that level, Coach, and then obviously, I know you went and you were coaching there at Windsor High School for a few years before you went to Oswego.
I was at Windsor High School. I was very lucky because I got out of the service early because I had a teaching job.
Mhm.
And their principal guy by the name of, they're in Philly, somehow got my name and knew that I was going to get out. And at that time, I was back stationed at Fort Dix. That's with Dickie Wilson, who was on our Olympic team. And I was his workout partner. And I got out of the service 6 months early in order to, because he said, we need him in this coaching, teaching position at Windsor High School. And I taught driver ed for half a day. And then I taught physical education. And the driver ed made me nervous and jerky, so I quick got out of that. That was enough for me. But I had a good run at Ithaca. We were fortunate. We had good young men. We had the number 1, 2, and 3 academically on our wrestling team. A guy by the name of Bill Sweetay was number 1. He became a brigadier general. Chuck Bush, he went on to wrestle at Cornell. And a guy by the name of Kaczynski, who I have lost track of. But we had the number 1, 2, 3 academic people on the wrestling team and on our cross country team. So you know what that tells you? We had smart kids.
Yeah,
Besides being
absolutely.
tough as nails, because most of them lived up on a street called Trim Street, which went over the mountains where rattlesnakes and all that good kind of stuff lived. And these were just tough kids that were very smart. In fact, it was hard for me to keep one step ahead of them. They were always trying to outwit me. but I was fortunate. I had good talent. Man, and in Windsor, every good athlete had brothers. And if you're smart, you'd grab those young brothers and make them the managers.
Yep.
It's probably the only team in the Southern Tier that carried 8 managers, all little kids. And of course, they would wrestle right along with practice, and they'd imitate and watch and learn. And that was part of our success. We had young men who'd been in the wrestling room, knew what the heck was going on, knew how to practice, knew how to train, knew how to win and lose. And so I had a really, really lucky but very good experience, 7 years at Windsor. And then a guy by the name of, went right out of my head, wanted a college coach at Oswego. And he sent this guy down, Tully Wells. He sent Tully Wells down to interview me. He interviewed me at the Hotel Arlington. And for an hour and a half, we talked hunting, fishing, and we didn't even talk about wrestling. And all of a sudden, he said, "You're hired." So there I went. I left Windsor and went to Oswego State. Was only going to stay 10 years. Stayed there forever.
Yeah. What year was that, Coach, that you went to Oswego?
I think I went there in 1962.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember coming up to Oswego for your retirement there in the 80s. I think it was 89 or so, something like that.
Yep, it was.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the good news about all that stuff. One of the accolades that I had with Tully Wells was, you must let me bring some wrestlers of my own from Windsor. And I actually brought 5 wrestlers with me. Now, only 3 of them stayed. The other 2 flunked out, but we had a base to start with.
Sure.
Oh, and those are the days where you had to wrestle freshmen. The freshmen had their own schedule, had their own team, and you didn't really wrestle varsity until you were a sophomore.
Right.
So I set the stage in how coaching is under Coach Howard by having my own kids there from Windsor. Was that help? You bet your life it was. Because all of a sudden I established myself in my way of doing things. And I never had problems with the athletes not getting into what we were doing. Everybody bought into the show. And we didn't charge them anything. They got in for free. That's my show. I'll stick with that.
Okay. Well, how about if you share some of the great guys that you had? You had Wally J. Scott, you had the Pizzo brothers, you had John Walters. Those guys were, as a young freshman, some of my heroes I kind of got to know a little bit. So Bobby Williams, some of those guys, Tommy.
All
French.
Windsor guys. You're talking about all Windsor guys. Bobby Williams was the Windsor guy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. But see, they understood the program.
Yeah.
And that's half of it. They weren't afraid coming in. They didn't wonder what was going to happen. They already knew what it was going to be all about. And I think that was helpful. Plus, all those guys you just mentioned were very good students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Paulie Jascott was good. He wanted industrial arts in the very beginning. John Waller, we had a little trouble with. We had to send him away to prep school for 1 year.
Uh-huh.
He went to a military prep school down in Virginia. And then his mother handed him to me and said, "He's all yours. I'm done dealing with him. You got him." And of course, he went on to become a national champ.
Yeah, he was amazing. He was amazing for sure.
Yeah, and we had a guy by the name of Dave Parisi. We forget about him. He was my first national champ.
Yeah.
And he won the NCAAs at Ashland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you this because the Ashland coach turned out to be a very dear friend of mine. He was Chris Ford.
Chris Ford. Yeah, I remember Coach Ford. Great guy.
In the finals. And David opened up a big cut on the kid's head accidentally. And they probably stopped the match probably 10 times. Well, wow. They stopped the bleeding on this poor young man. And but David ended up winning the match and going on in those days to the big nationals. He very well could have placed in the big nationals. With a little luck, yeah, he could have placed along with the Doug Morris, who was a kid who was just a kid who wanted industrial arts, did not do a lot academically, but was clever as heck with his hand and turned out to be a good industrial arts teacher. And he was big and tough. He's another one. He could have very well placed in the big nationals with a little break. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a little bit of luck involved in the kid. You mentioned the Pizos. To this day, I still hunt with Cass. Still go to Texas and hunt antlers with him. And then we still interact with Ralph. They're loyal alums of Oswego State.
Yeah, they're great guys. And and certainly with my era there, we had Ed Pucci and Danny Catersano, Carl Carrozza, Tommy Wilson. We had quite a crew there. Paul Westfield.
Wilson was an Army guy. He came out of the service.
Yeah.
Got him from Elmira. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we needed an 18-pounder in those days, and he fit the bill very, very good.
Yeah. Just a great group of guys. And you talk about like a band of brothers and everything. How about your sons, Coach? I mean, here you've got a grandson, and he was the starting goalie for the Detroit Red Wings. You've got Michael, your youngest, that's taken over the team there at Oswego, and Jimmy Jr. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, start with Jimmy, my oldest. I know we never kind of directed our kids to wrestling or to basketball or to whatever. And Jimmy was a skater. He loved to skate. So he lived in the rink. And he was a hockey player himself. He's a defenseman and a pretty good one. And Mark kind of wanted to wrestle. And he wanted to go to North Carolina State because in those days they had industrial arts also. Mm-hmm. So he went down and wrestled with Bobby Guzzle for a year and a half, and then decided that maybe Oswego State was a better place to be. So he transferred from North Carolina State back to Oswego. And all during this time, Michael, my youngest son, was out of Buffalo wrestling for Eddie Michaels. Mm-hmm. And academically, he didn't do very well. They said, "You can't stay here." So he came back and wrestled for us at Oswego. So I ended up having both my sons wrestle for me, mm-hmm. which is a hard thing, but a wonderful thing.
Sure.
It was wonderful being able to coach them, but it was hard because everybody thought that, I was giving them special treatment. And I can remember a young man who felt that he could never win the wrestle off because he had to wrestle off with the son of the coach. So, which wasn't true. It was just the way he felt. But so there's good and there's bad that goes with coaching your own kids.
Sure. Yeah. And how about Michael carrying the torch going forward? Since you retired out of there, he's done a great job keeping things moving forward.
Coaching longer than I did.
I know.
He finished his 27th year, I think, last year.
Wow.
I think was there for 22 or 23 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our granddaughter, Brittany, is the women's lacrosse coach at Oswego State.
Yeah, I met her on a couple of the occasions on the wrestling reunions, and yeah, very sharp young lady, and obviously doing very, very well up there.
She was a tough lacrosse player, women's lacrosse player. She's one of the ones that if they ever put helmets on the girls in lacrosse, she'd have been a 3-time All-American. She was tough. She was rough and tough.
Yeah, well, that definitely has a Howard gene within her there. So, Coach, tell us a little bit about what we'll get ready to wrap this up pretty soon. But you've transitioned very well into becoming the ultimate beekeeping guru up there in New York State. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I went to the NCAAs with the Binghamton team. Steve Erber was the coach at Binghamton, and the NCAAs were out in California, and I can't remember the school, but anyway, we went out there, and I stayed over for a few extra days because my sister lived in California. And when I went there, all of a sudden I saw these boxes in the backyard, and she had 3 beehives. And I said, "Tell me about how you do this." And she put a helmet on me, drew up a little smoke, and away we went. So when I came back, I said, "We got to have bees. We got to have at least 2 hives of bees." So we did. We had 2 hives of bees, and for probably, I'm going to say 10 to 15 years, we were honey takers. We weren't beekeepers. We were honey takers. We just took the honey. The bees survived the winter. Good. If they didn't, we'd buy new bees. And we were honey takers. Then I retired. And when I retired, I got really interested in beekeeping and went to a lot of clinics and have been to the National American Federation of Beekeepers at least 10 times, continue to go there. And I fell in love with beekeeping. The bees like me. I get stung now and then, but the bees like me. I don't have any arthritis, by the way. And the reason I don't have any arthritis is because I get stung all the time.
Yeah.
And there's an analogy here that, the venom of the bee sting keeps your joints nice and fluid and keeps you moving and grooving, keeps you in line. The bees keep you in line. If you talk too loud, they'll buzz around you and say, "Tone it down a little bit here. We can hear." Because you can't hear doesn't mean we can't hear. And so I've had a lot of fun with beekeeping. In fact, I just before I came here today, I had to go and put a couple extra boxes. I had 2 beehives that we tried out this new kind of comb. It was kind of a self-made comb. And so we tried one was a queen that we bought, and one was a queen that we let them raise their own, just to see how it worked with this with this new foundation. And they're both doing well. We put extra boxes on. They'll be filled with honey by the time we get back from the far west from our fly fishing trip.
Well, certainly, you keep things. You're always looking forward, always setting more goals for yourself, Coach, on a variety of things. And could you share this story? I really like the story that you told when you were there at the school, the elementary school, and the little kid was asking you about.
Oh yeah, well I tell this story all the time.
I love it.
I do a lot of
tell that one.
I have an observation hive which has 2 frames of bees, probably 300 bees in this observation hive, and you can take it. The kids can watch the bees, and you can hold their attention for a little bit because you tell stories about them. And so I'm at Hannibal High School, and I got 3 third grades. And so and third graders are very active, they're moving and shaking. And so there's this big room with all these things. I said, "Okay, now I know you're interested in bees. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about bees. You're going to listen, and then you're going to get a chance to ask questions. But you have to be thinking now. I don't want to know where your grandmother got stung or that your brother stepped on a bee. And I don't want to know that kind of stuff. I want to know, what's your question about the wonderful insect, the honeybee?" And so I finally got to it, a little spiel. Keep it short, and you got their attention. And so I said, "Okay, now you can ask questions." And right up in front was this little guy, and his hand shot right up, man. And he was waving at him. I thought, this is not a bee question. This is something that could be embarrassing. I'm not going to call on him. So I call on a couple of little girls. I call on some guy. He's bound determined he's going to be heard. And he's waving his hand, and finally I couldn't do it anymore. I had to say, okay, this is a bee question, right? And he goes, yep, it's a good one too. And so I said, okay, what's your question? He looked me right straight in the eye and he said, what are those things in your ears? And of course I have hearing aids because I don't hear well. And I started on a story about how I communicate with the bees. And the teachers in the back room said, no, don't tell them that stuff, because they'll run home and tell their folks, and then we'll all sound dumb. So anyway, that's my story about the little third grader who was not afraid to find out what those things in my ears were.
Yeah, so that, like you said, that allowed you to communicate with the bees. I remember when you first shared that with us a couple of reunions ago. It was a great story for sure. So, well, Coach, this has been fantastic.
Well, yeah.
Thank you so very, very much. Any last parting thoughts, life lessons?
You didn't ask me about where I'm going.
Well, go ahead.
Ask me about where I'm going.
Okay, I know
you're commercial here.
Okay, you're going out west to do some fly fishing. Go ahead.
My fly fishing buddy and I are getting on an airplane here in a few days, and we're flying into Colorado. We're going to watch my youngest granddaughter get married, and then we're going to fly fish a very famous stream out there for 3 days with a guide. And then we're hopping on another airplane and we're flying up to Washington State, and we're going to fish in what bay, Kate? We're going to fish in the Puget Sound. We're going to go fly at the fish in Puget Sound. And after a few days there with Kate's son and her brother, we're going to hop on another airplane, fly back to Montana, where we will fish in a beautiful lodge. And hopefully there's going to be water in the streams because they're in a terrible drought out there. But we're going to fly fish there for probably 4 days. Hop on an airplane and come back. So we're going to do a lot of fly fishing in the next 2 weeks.
Well, it sounds fantastic. And you always keep yourself in great shape physically, mentally, emotionally, Coach, for sure. And that the line I like probably one of the best was your mom asking you about becoming a priest. That's a good one, Coach. That's a good one.
I'm on one leg now.
Yeah.
Well, I tore up my Achilles tendon trying to push my truck.
Oh, geez. I hope I hope the fly fishing goes okay for you with that boot or whatever you got to wear.
We won't wear the boot. We're already out of the boot. We're a step ahead of them. My doctor will be, he's just going to love it when he sees what great gains I've made without that boot.
Well, good luck with everything, Coach. This has been fantastic. I appreciate it very, very much. It's an interview I've wanted to do for quite a while. And if you could let your sons, grandkids and everything know, if they would, share and tag it, on Facebook or any social media. I'm going to do it with a lot of the guys that I'm in contact with, Ed Pucci and Dennis Luzon, a lot of those guys that will be sharing.
Dennis is still out on the West Coast. You know that, right?
Yeah, he's in California. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh, this is good. This is good.
So we're going to get it out there. I know you're going to get a lot of views. So just pass it around to your family, ask them to share and tag it out there. And great talking to you. I told the truth all the time. What's that, sir?
I said, I hope I told the truth all the time. Somebody's going to call me on something I said for sure. If I embellished on anything, I'm sure I will hear from it.
Oh, no, I think you did great. Appreciate it very, very much. And good luck fishing out there, and just keep things moving. Get that Achilles better. And Coach, if you could hang on for just a second after I pause it, that would be
I got one more adage.
Okay, go ahead.
My role in life right now is if it's not fun, I don't do it.
Yeah. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Couldn't think of a better closer. Can you hang on just for a second after we shut this recording off, Coach?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I super appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay. And to probably the number one role model in my life, this great man right here, very much appreciated, Coach Howard. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.